things going with our shelter insurance one-on-one.
Well, if you look at Arkansas, they need to control the tempo and turn offense into defense, lead the SEC in steals, and then Auburn Tigers need to take care of the basketball and dominate the paint.
Let's take a look at our starting lineups. First of all, for Arkansas, the good news, Michael Sanchez back for his second straight start after missing 3 in a row with a bad shoulder. And on the other side for the Auburn Tigers, 3 juniors in that starting lineup to go along with a sophomore and a senior. Big news, though, moments ago from Auburn, number 1, Varez Ward, 6'2", 208-pound sophomore, and Chris Denson, a 6'7", 232-pound freshman, not on the bench, not dressed, not available. Turmoil for the Tigers, Damien. We'll talk about that, but on the opening tip, Arkansas in the road red has the first possession. And how about getting right to work? We talked about it in the pregame. Mardrakus Wade, the SEC's leading three-point shooter in terms of percentage, knocks it down.
In Arkansas's 3 wins over the top 25 ranked teams, Vanderbilt, Michigan, and Mississippi State, they shot over 50% from the field. So that smells bad news for Auburn if they can get off to a good start from the perimeter.
Chubb inside, goes to the home. And 2 teams that have had difficulty at times scoring the basketball each hit their first shots of the day. Spin move inside. How about Devonta Abram going to work?
Your coach Mike Anderson couldn't have asked for a much better start. The offense very critical for Arkansas as well. Every time they score a basket, it allows them to set up into the different types of pressure full court.
Devonta Abram has pulled down 11 rebounds in his last 2 games played. A guy, one of those young guys that's coming along and playing better and better for the Razorbacks. Chubb, nice kick out. Nice decision by Wallace. Abram, nice catch. And he's called for the offensive foul. But the big news, as we mentioned early on, Varez Ward, Chris Denson will not dress today and will not be available. Damien, anytime this happens, it's got to affect the team.
Well, you're seeing a lot of coaches right now. You heard Buzz Williams talk about it in the game last night against Marquette, not starting his guys first half, second half. Coach Anthony Grant doing the same. So I commend the coaches for making sure that these young players have discipline and respect whatever the decision is made.
Chubb inside from Wallace. And Ricky Scott brings it into the front court. Young still looking for his first shot. And that one is swatted away by Alan Payne. Payne, as you young guys like to say, has got some hops. We saw him throw a couple down as a shoot-around today now.
I really like Alan Payne and this young man right here as well.
Kenny Gabriel's been feeling a different kind of pain with a bad back, but that will ease things as Auburn takes its first lead. Abram lost it. Here's Gabriel. And you can tell he's still a little gimpy with that back. He's got a brace on. And here's what happened the other night against Florida. Not 1, but 2 big-time collisions with the floor. The first one right there on that lower back, and then he came back, and then there was another one. I mean, he was beaten up after that. Missed the last 12 minutes of that game, and that really affected the way the Tigers weren't able to finish. They felt like they got off to a good start against the Gators. Here's Wade again. Off the kick out. Ricky Sullivan. Auburn 2 of 2 outside the arc. And into the front court. Arkansas makes them pay as Wade with a nice step through.
We expect this to be a very close game. 12 lead changes in the previous matchup between these 2 teams.
missed that one. And here's Young for Arkansas. Payne the other way. And then Say got shoved from behind. He'll have a chance to complete a three-point play.
You know, Dave, Coach Mike Anderson talked about how he was a little disappointed in this last run, losing these games. His team turning over the basketball, as you see Payne with a nice finish. He talked about how his team usually did a better job of taking care of the basketball, but he had a couple of injuries. Had Waith that was hurt, also had Sanchez that was out, and so you combine a young group with playing a lot of minutes in his type of system, and the wear and tear of the season affected his young Razorback team a little bit.
Arkansas has lost 5 of its last 6, and on its last 5 possessions, they've had 3 turnovers here today. Young kicks it out. It's a tough pass for Scott to handle. And then he turns it over. The last time these two teams played, Arkansas had it going their way early. But if they were to do it today, the freshman B.J. Young will have to step up. His story next. About Arkansas, what they've done. Mike Anderson is a guy who wants high-energy players, and he's got one of the very best in the league in terms of B.J. Young.
Well, I absolutely love B.J. Young. I think he's one of the most impressive freshmen in the conference this year. You can talk about a lot of the freshmen, whether it's Kid Gilchrist, Anthony Davis, go to Mississippi State, talk about Rodney Hood. There's a lot of great freshmen. I think the future and the outlook of this league is very impressive.
And, of course, B.J. Young is our Denny's value player, focusing on a freshman in the SEC, making valuable contributions to his team. And that's been a key so far today, Damian, because while Auburn has got that balanced scoring, Young has not yet gotten on the scoreboard. They've only got him 1 shot.
Obviously, Coach Tony Barbie keying in on him after the last 4 games, him averaging over 24 points a game.
Chubb with a turnaround. An offensive rebound for the Tigers, but a travel is called as Payne and Chubb battled each other for the rebound. Wade, after hitting his first, his other 2 3-point attempts have been on target but have not found the mark.
When you look at Arkansas, when they've struggled, they've been turned into a half-court team. This is where they're good, though. Good pressure, half-court trap, mixing up their defenses and keeping the offense on their heels.
Payne with a nice take to the basket, but it was Auburn who knocked it away. And we were talking earlier, for those of you who may just be joining us, Varez Ward, Chris Denson, 2 big contributors for this Auburn team. Not on the bench, not dressed today. When we were talking to Tony Barbie at shoot-around today, Damian, he said there's been no person outside of his father that's had a bigger influence on him than John Calipari, who he talks to all the time. He said Cal says everybody's got issues with their team at this time of year. Little did we know.
Well, he's got issues, but he's also got about 5 McDonald's All-Americans, so his issues are a little different than Coach Tony Barbie.
You think? He was making, though, everybody's got to deal with it this time of year with close-knit groups like this that are in the middle of a long season as Ricky Scott gets the lay-in.
Well, he's right, and what he said that he learned from Coach Calipari is that what he does is go directly to the issues, set guys down, and address those issues, and I'm sure he'll do the same with Ward and Denson.
I think he has.
This game.
I think he has. Tony Naismith, 6'5", 270-pound senior, 217-pound senior, number 15, had the basketball knocked away. He's getting some time today because of those suspensions. Also, Noel Johnson, 6'6", 200-pound sophomore, wearing number 32, checking in. Wallace checks back in. And also, coming in for Auburn, number 45, Adrian Forbes, 6'8", 232 out of Spanish Town, Jamaica, via Trinity Valley Community College.
Forbes had a very good game against Florida on the road.
Johnson trying to beat the shot clock. Are you kidding me? Oh, if you're Mike Anderson, you hate to see that. That's not just a basket, that's a sign. Kiko Haidar, number 20. There with a basketball into the Arkansas lineup. Marvell Waite had it blocked. He just checked in, as did number 21, Hunter Mickelson.
Well, Noel Johnson, the guy who has struggled because of a wrist injury, that is a huge shot for him to see go down. He is a guy that has been in and out for Auburn through the year. Another one of those guys that Coach Tony Barbie actually expected to come and give him 10 to 12 points a game. And so you look at a guy like him, good size, a veteran player transferring in from Clemson. If he gets going, obviously another asset and another weapon for Auburn.
Ulysses Noble's in there now, as is Rashard Madden, 0-0. Madden off the kick out. Here's Nobles.
Dave, we talked about at the onset, Arkansas having to control the tempo. Auburn has done a good job of turning the Razorbacks into a half-court team thus far, not turning the basketball over too much and defending the paint.
Gabriel, oh my goodness, where is this coming from? Auburn now 4 of 6 from outside the arc. The Razorbacks came into this one 10th in the league in three-point shooting. Gabriel again. Wow. Sometimes when you have something go wrong off the court, other people step up on it. Tigers force a turnover. They are rolling here at the Auburn Arena. And it's Kenny G. Gee whiz. I'm hurt. And then what's he do? He comes out in the first 8 minutes. 8 points, 4 rebounds, and a block shot to boot.
Dave, he's so critical to this Auburn basketball team. Both he and Frankie Sullivan, the true leaders, I think the pillars of this team this year. And Kenny Gabriel, a guy who actually had a chance to work out with former Auburn star Marquise Daniels over the summer, who says he has all the potential in the world. He just has to put it together and be consistent throughout the entire season.
Mike Anderson looking for some answers. Went to his zone defense that time. And Johnson's miss goes out of bounds. And it'll be Arkansas basketball with the Razorbacks looking up at that 21-9 deficit. Madden looking for room. That's a nice play by the freshman out of Lapento, Arkansas.
We saw before Auburn had 22 turnovers in the first outing in Bud Walton Arena. Today, only 3 turnovers. They've been taking care of the basketball a lot better. Arkansas has to try to find a way to create some offense off of their defense.
First thing they got to do is put the ball in the basket so they can get in their press. And that was one of the few times they've been able to do that. Shot clock at 5. And Wallace is fouled with 3 on the clock. Now, a lot of folks may be wondering what Kenny Gabriel is doing, but I love that thing. When you get old like me, I've got like one of those rollers at the house, one at the office, one at the Y. Now, if you're Kenny Gabriel's age and you're using one, that's not a good thing. But I'm telling you, it's one of those deals that works, and you think, man, why didn't I think of this? I could have some put away for retirement right now. But Gabriel trying to keep that lower back loose. And you see his numbers in the first 8 minutes.
And Josh Wallace, the young man at the free throw line, 26 starts last year. Kind of a battle early in the season for the starting position between he and Varez Ward. Wallace has done a good job of really stepping up to the plate. Here at school on a civil engineering scholarship.
Ball batted away in the post. Forbes got a hand on it and created the turnover. Wallace gets it to Payne. Textbook play at both ends for the Tigers.
Arkansas, if you're B.J. Young, this is where you need to step up, even as a freshman.
Madden had it in his hands a long time. And Nicholson forced one up at the buzzer. Young has still only got one shot for Arkansas.
Well, Dave, the youth is showing right now for the Razorbacks. You look at some of those quality wins, and I like the chess move right now. Trying to go back to a 2-3 zone with Coach Mike Anderson. Arkansas leads the league in steals. When it goes bad, it goes really bad, doesn't it, Dave?
They keep playing like that, it'll be checkmate. Frankie Sullivan from long range, but the Tigers starting it with a defense.
A recipe for disaster. Turnovers and not getting back in transition defense. Arkansas is actually last in scoring defense. Again, these young freshmen having to grow up very quickly on the road. And Frankie Sullivan, who we talked about, the leader on this basketball team, along with Kenny Gabriel, playing outstanding basketball. You cannot give him an open look from behind that three-point line.
You take a look at that last meeting, and that was in the middle of a run where Arkansas won 17 in a row at Bud Walton. Since then, though, they have lost 5 of their last 6. You saw that game had the 9 lead changes and the 8 ties. But we talked to Mike Anderson before the game. It's a confidence thing. He doesn't want to say that guys are hitting the wall. And sure, there's physical fatigue involved, especially when you're coming off a game Thursday night. But at this time of year, it's more mental fatigue as he tries to change the mentality and the focus of an entire program.
Well, right now, he's having to continue to develop his culture. He talked about a little bit before the game, some of the guys who have already been here, your older guys, can go back to some bad habits when they get down on the road, as you see a big 3 by Scott from Arkansas. And he's having to develop even the young freshmen, the culture and the mindset to not give up during the basketball game as well.
Wow, that pass was absolutely threaded through. And everything going Auburn's way right now. To compound Arkansas's problem, they've been awful the last 3 games in terms of three-point defense. You saw the graphic, 30 of 57. And that has enabled Auburn, who's 10th in the league in three-point shooting, to get off to a big-time start from the outside as well. Wade.
Well, this is where, if you're Arkansas, you've got to do better. Not a good enough sprint to get back. Just too easy. When you look at Auburn, Auburn's one of those teams that are kind of a bubble burster. They're one of those teams that you're going to see, I think, as a bad loss for some of these other teams as you go through the rest of this SEC schedule. And they have some pieces right now. You look at Coach Mike Anderson right there. The first thing that he is going to have to do is to get these young freshmen to buy in defensively. Let's remember, Dave, these guys were in high school last year. They're playing the state tournament right now. So the long wear and tear of this season is starting to get to the young team for the Razorbacks.
Difficult for anybody to win on the road in the SEC, but especially young teams. As Payne gets it, and he'll have a chance to complete a three-point play. Case in point, Auburn, as up and down as they've been this year, they've only lost 2 at home to Alabama and to Kentucky.
Well, they play very good basketball in this arena, and this is very good ball movement. You see the double team. Whenever you get double team inside, you got to find the open man, and what made it very good that time by Chubb was that he looked opposite and found Allen Payne.
Lane violation called against Rob Chubb on that free throw. But nonetheless, Auburn still with its biggest lead at 16.
When you look at Auburn in their season that they've had this year, an overtime game at LSU, lost to 3 in Starkville, Mississippi against Mississippi State. We're up 15 early in the second half against Ole Miss, so have played teams very well and competed against anybody, but just have come up on the short end of the stick quite a few times.
Young shot won't go. And that's the kind of day it has been for the Razorbacks. Florida, take a look. Kenny Boynton and company. What they have done as we take a look. Damian Fishback at our Toyota SEC leaders.
Yeah, just an incredible group of young men there. Moultrie, arguably one of the best transfers in the country this year. Jenkins and Taylor, and of course B.J. Young, who has struggled here today, but you see him in the top 6.
Well, and the thing about B.J. Young as well is in his last 5 games, he's been averaging almost 13.5 shots a game. Today, he's just 0 for 2. And take a look at this, Damian. And one thing about young players, they don't realize how hard they have to go all the time.
Well, when you look at B.J. Young, candidly, he doesn't have much of an inside presence. Both Sanchez and Auburn, Waith, those guys play hard, but they're not dominant in the paint area, so he doesn't get any inside-out type action unless it's off the penetration.
What you're saying is defenses are able to shade on him some more. And Scott gets the bucket and draws the foul.
You're exactly right. I mean, they can really just hang around with him on the outside as far as the perimeter, unless he gets creation by guys like Scott or Waith or Nobles, then he really has to create most of his shots for himself, which I think just continues to give him credit to the success that he's had this year.
Scott completes their three-point play as you take a look at what we've got coming to you next Saturday, the final Saturday of regular season play. Here's Young on to the Fitz. Don't get me wrong, kid's got a great motor. But, I mean, you got to be sprinting at this level all the time to get yourself open. Kind of like that. You got to be going to a spot, and it's Forbes who found it.
Just too easy right now, Dave. Offensively, Auburn only coming in during SEC games averaging around 57 points per game, and they've got 33 with 7 minutes left to go in the half.
They only scored 17 the second half against Florida the other night. Now that was without Gabriel, who gets his second block. Oh my goodness. Kenny Gabriel up around the top of the block.
It's a panic shot. Right now, the Razorbacks trying to find themselves. Auburn, who plays good defense anyway, just making it very difficult for the Razorbacks, who are being impatient.
Johnson couldn't get that one to go. And here's Scott on the hustle. Nice play, Ricky Scott. And Tony Barbee doesn't like what he's seen defensively from his club. He takes a timeout. And Damian, so far, Auburn doing it at both ends.
Well, you see the penetration by Naismith and a good finish by Forbes, but there was no help defense there. And then here, you see Scott doing the right thing, attacking the basket. But we talked about the defensive ability of Gabriel and Sullivan, just taking his time, and it's easy money in transition for Frankie Sullivan.
And that's Kenny Gabriel getting a block on the ball. That's not coming over from the weak side, you know, and getting one when nobody expects you coming. You see the guard matchup, and you see the numbers for Frankie Sullivan and B.J. Young. Sullivan's gotten off to a pretty good start today, but Young has been a guy that has not gotten a little help until here recently. Ricky Scott's got 10, and he's got Arkansas's last 5. But Young still looking to get on track.
Well, for Coach Mike Anderson, he's asking a lot out of his freshman group. Waith and Sanchez, the only 2 seniors, and you have to remember, preseason SEC second teamer Marshawn Powell goes down before the Houston game at their shoot-around. And so they're just fighting through, trying to turn lemons into lemonade.
Scott, boy, is he feeling it. A dozen for Ricky Scott. It's his 14th double figures game of the season, and he's now got the last 7 for the Razorbacks.
It's funny, you watch the fastest 40 minutes in college basketball when you talk about Nolan Richardson that aired on ESPNU, and this is what Nolan Richardson was talking about. He's waiting for a breaking point, and we know that Coach Mike Anderson learned a lot from Coach Nolan Richardson. And so when you have a team like Arkansas, you look at this 12-point deficit, they are never out, and that's the culture that Coach Anderson's still trying to teach his team and get them accustomed to there in Arkansas.
Wade gets it to go. The other thing he said was at this time of year when people are starting to get worn down, people may have problems, whatever's going on, that's the time when we should be going even harder. And that's what I'm trying to get across to my guys.
Well, this is where fatigue can come into play for Auburn a little bit. You have to remember a lot of these minutes at the guard position for Frankie Sullivan and Wallace would be taken up by Varez Ward and Chris Denson. Not getting those minutes today, so those are extra minutes by their perimeter.
Long three-pointer won't go for Sullivan. And for those of you who are just joining us, Ward and Denson both out today, not on the bench, not dressed. We got that word just before tip. But Tony Barbee says he will address the reason for that after the game. Gabriel with a defensive play, and look at him go! And at the other end, the Razorbacks able to answer. But I could see this liftoff coming from over here at the table with Kenny Gabriel.
Well, notice that he starts it on the defensive end with the deflection, getting back on defense. Then he goes upstairs, top floor. Kenny Gabriel showing you his ability to send it on home here in Auburn Arena.
Say, you talk about a mindset now. Ricky Scott has got it. Because after that highlight play, he busted it back down to the other end. And he completes the three-point play.
Well, what you love about Ricky Scott is his ability to get to the paint. He has a strong physical body. Goes to the perimeter with reckless abandon.
Mitchell called for the contact, number 25. Brandon Mitchell, the 6'4", 230-pound sophomore guard on the basketball team, quarterback on the football team. Coming in to give Mike Anderson a little physical presence.
At practice yesterday, Auburn did a lot of work on going against the pressure of the Razorbacks, making sure that the other guards came back to the basketball. Many times turnovers are caused by the other teammate running away from the basketball.
Are you kidding? Oh, wow. Wallace with a misfire. Check this out in real time, Damian. That young man is going to hurt his head on that rim if he's not careful. That's what his mom will say.
One thing that I love about the SEC this year, they have a plethora of guys who can play above the rim.
The quarterback tried to go up and had it swatted away. Here's Payne.
That's what kills you if you're Arkansas. On the road, you're trying to make a run back, cut the lead to 10 and an offensive rebound.
Bad pass. Bad shot. 50-50 ball, though, it seems, is going the way of the Tigers right now.
Well, and as we just mentioned, the second offensive rebound, you look at those losses against Alabama, against Florida, against Tennessee. Arkansas was out-rebounded in every event.
Auburn with the double-digit lead. A lot of high-flying, but a lot of defense. It's Auburn 37, Arkansas 27. Today now.
Auburn today sending a message. Come strong or don't come at all.
And as you take a look at Kenny Gabriel's numbers, we give you a look at our Haviland defensive shield. You see that Gabriel is averaging 2.4 blocks per game. He's got 2 today. And you see Anthony Davis averaging 4.8. I got a tweet earlier today. He got 139. He got 5 today, 139 for the season for Kentucky. The tweet was that would cause him to be ranked 26th among team blocks in the country.
Outstanding young freshman, and you noticed on that graphic Hunter Mickelson as well. Bright future for both of these teams, I think.
Nice move underneath. Mitchell giving his team a bump. The sophomore from Amity, Louisiana. One thing that's happened, though, Davey, is not only has Arkansas been able to cut this lead down from 17 to 8, but they've got the game at a pace that they much prefer, as opposed to the pace that Auburn likes to go at.
Well, and that's what we meant when we talked about controlling the tempo. See Rob Chubb, the nice jump hook. Arkansas needs to run when they feel like they should be running. But against a team like Auburn who struggles to score, sometimes they do need to run some 2-2-1 pressure back to some 2-3 zone and make Auburn try to score against a set defense in the half court.
Wade with a floater, it won't go, and here's Wallace on the break. And Mitchell is going to be called for the foul over the back. Coming up on the C Spire halftime report with Dari Noka and Kyle Macy. Anthony Davis had a huge day as Kentucky wraps up another SEC championship. Mississippi State in a must-win tonight. That's a pretty big one for Alabama as well. And all the SEC highlights and scores. The fellas coming up from our studios in just a minute and 40 seconds. Excuse me, they called that foul on Ulysses Nobles. Mitchell raised his hand. It was Nobles 23 instead of Mitchell 25. And it's foul number 2 on Nobles. Wallace, high off the glass. That little fella shows no fear, Damian. Boy, what a huge half for Ricky Scott. He's got 18 in the first half on 7 of 9 shooting. 13 of Arkansas's last 15 points have come from Scott.
Irving, Texas native. Scott putting his team on his back in this first half. Much needed, and you know, you look at this score, and it seems like Auburn should be up a little bit more.
And he's had to. B.J. Young over there on the bench. We talked about what he's done. 0 for 2 from the field, scoreless in the first half. And he's not in foul trouble. Gabriel.
Smart decision here, holding it to 1 shot.
And after being down 17, Mike Anderson will take a single-digit deficit and be pretty happy about it into the locker room at the half. Wayne, and he got Gabriel in the air with 1.6 on the clock. Not only is it a foul before the expiration of the half, it'll send Wade to the line for 3.
Well, if you're Coach Tony Barbie, you've got all your hair, but you're about to start losing some, and it's going to start turning gray. You see the frustration on his face right now, not only because Kenny Gabriel had the size advantage, but because Gabriel's a senior, he's a veteran, he has to know better. A good job of Wade, though, a guy who shoots nearly 50% from the three-point line, of getting Gabriel off of his feet and drawing the foul.
Wade missed the first, got the second. Rashad Madden checks into the Arkansas lineup. Nobles comes out as he's got 2 first-half fouls. Payne back in there now, number 2, replacing Naismith, who you see on the Auburn bench. Wade gets 2 of 3. And interesting, Gabriel taking the basketball out for Auburn instead of being down on the receiving end. Tries the touchdown pass. And the quarterback intercepts it. Auburn out to a 17-point lead, but it would have been much worse had it not been for the 18 first-half points from Ricky's. What stands out to you, Damian?
Well, the rebounds. We talked about domination in the paint. Auburn 15-9, and then points in the paint, 22-16.
Wade and Scott have combined for 28 of Arkansas's 34 points. They're 9 of 15 from the field. Everybody else for the Razorbacks is 3 of 9. And B.J. Young, as Wade hits the three-pointer. Young, the outstanding freshman we talked about, on the bench to start the second half of play for Arkansas. You
can already see that Coach Mike Anderson has made a decision. Instead of trying to pressure Arkansas, he's felt like they'll have better success of matching up in their 2-3 zone and making Auburn play against a half-court set of 5 defenders.
Baseline move, won't fall for Payne. Chubb missed the first putback, and he'll go to the line for 2. Again, to recap from the start, Varez Ward, Chris Denson, 2 guys that are playing substantial minutes for Auburn. Not on the bench, not dressed today. Tony Barbee making that decision. He has not said why. He will address it after the game.
Well, and Ward, the transfer from Texas, has been playing good basketball. Those 2 guys, and Denson and Ward, 2 of the 5 guys who average between about 8 and 12 points a game for Auburn, so pretty good balance. If they're going to be missed, I feel like the second half will show it, because you've got the Razorbacks who can try to push the tempo and wear your legs down.
And so Young checks in now, just about 45 seconds into the second half of play, and that's because Ulysses Nobles just picked up his 3rd foul. Scott with 18 in the first half. Here's Young with a touch. Young for 3.
About 1 step a little deeper than Wade would have liked to have been on that jump shot. But again, here you say Arkansas staying in that zone, just matching up. It's almost more of a 3-2 zone, and it looks like they're going to chaser on Frankie Sullivan as well.
And it looks like they're going to let Chubb go to work. But Kenny Gabriel loaded up on the putback. Scott's first shot of the second half won't go. And Auburn kind of feeling it. You can see them kind of fighting within themselves a little bit, Damian, because they're making shots, they're dunking the ball, they want to get out and run a little bit, but that plays into Arkansas's hands.
It really does, and it's a battle of tempos here. Auburn doesn't want to go too quick, but they want to maintain their aggressiveness, as you see Payne with the nice finish at the rim.
He gets it to go, and Mitchell, the football quarterback, ready to check back in for Arkansas. Young on the penetration, and they say he palmed the basketball.
A perfect example of moving without the basketball and then also going to the offensive glass. Kenny Gabriel filling it. And you notice there, 1, 2, 3, 4 red shirts. No box out of Kenny Gabriel. You have to do better if you're the Razorbacks.
You better knock him out instead of boxing him out. I am telling you, he has done some high flying today. And now you can see what a big blow it was for Auburn to lose Gabriel in the final 12 minutes of that game Thursday night in Gainesville, a game that Tony Barbee thought they were playing pretty well in. And look at Rob Chubb. Mike Anderson wasn't expecting that. He's got to figure out what he's going to do. Auburn has stretched it back out to a 12-point lead. Look at Auburn getting it done in the paint.
And we talked about as being one of the keys for Auburn. They're dominating 28-16 as far as points in the paint, and also winning the rebounding war 20-10. Here's a good job of Rob Chubb just showing you the sweeping hook. If you're Arkansas, you have to take more pride, and that's difficult with a group of freshmen, but you have to take more pride on the defensive end.
Rob Chubb had to have a Mark Eaton DVD to replicate that move.
Where do you come up with this?
Mitchell back in there. Young with a fake. UC starting to hesitate now. Shot clock at 5. Here's Young. Mitchell had to put back, but Gabriel got the block. That's his third. Doesn't make any difference whether it's offense or defense. Every time the ball's up around the rim, Kenny Gabriel is there.
Well, he really is, and they're really keeping an eye on Young as well, which is something that you run into when you have conference play. They're keying in on B.J. Young and doing a good job of keeping him from getting going offensively.
Two officials, Mike Roberts, Mike Thibodeau, getting together. Finally, it was Thibodeau that came in and said that the basketball would stay with Arkansas. The Auburn bench still upset over it. And on that inbounds, Noel Johnson called for the foul. Here's a look at the guard comparison. Barry. I'm thinking Barry Booker with all these three-point plays, Damian. But it's not what we thought it was going to be.
Well, when you look at Frankie Sullivan, he is a veteran, and he's playing like a veteran, energized, playing with a lot of poise here today. And B.J. Young just not getting enough shots off. You see only 3 field goals today.
Now they had a problem with the clock. The officials wearing these boxes on the side, the precision time system to reset the clock and to stop it properly. And they had to reset, and now we're ready to go. You were a much better player than Barry Booker.
I was going to let it go. Nice finish that time by Mitchell. That's what the coaching staff likes about Mitchell. His athleticism allows him to be strong enough to guard power forwards and small forwards, but he's quick enough to where he usually has an advantage of foot speed when he goes against the post of other teams.
Obviously a guy playing on the Razorback football team as well that can bring a physical presence to this Arkansas team. Wallace in all kinds of trouble. Arkansas gets the held ball and the turnover. And the Razorbacks trying to get back in it with that big-time pressure they've been known for over the years. Tony Barbee and his club trying to regroup. We're back to Auburn right after this. Arkansas, the lead for the homestanding Tigers has been as many as 17, and Auburn, much like Arkansas, an entirely different team at home than they are on the road. The only 2 times the Tigers have lost in this building this year have been to Alabama and to Kentucky. Arkansas, Damian, looking for their first road win.
And it's been difficult for just about every team here in the SEC, besides Kentucky, at winning on the road. About 29%.
There you see what Wade and Scott have done and what they're hoping the rest of the team can bring to the table. Boy, what a lift that Brandon Mitchell has been for this Arkansas basketball team. Foul on the inbounds. Mitchell had 8 points against South Carolina back on February the 11th. Didn't get his first action until the Vanderbilt game. But he's going to get more minutes if he keeps playing like this. Sanchez on Chubb. Now Arkansas back and extending the man-to-man. Chubb triple team. Wow. That was another look in possession except for the end result if you're an Auburn fan, and that was a two-pointer by Noel Johnson.
The uglier the game, the better for the Tigers, I think. And if you're Arkansas, you tend to get caught up into that as you see Wade with another trifecta out of the corner. Arkansas just doing a tremendous job, though, Coach Mike Anderson, of switching defenses. We've seen some matchup zone. We've seen man-to-man, some full court pressure, never allowing Auburn to get settled.
Young couldn't handle it off the break. And the Razorbacks reset it. Wade with 16. And he's fouled as he goes to the basket.
Check this out here, Dave. And freeze it when we get inside. Right there. 1, 2, 3, 4 red jerseys. This is what you want if you're Auburn. Now as we let it go, Rob Chubb doing the right thing, getting it back out. Ball reversal. Nice wide open jump shot from Noel Johnson inside. Very good movement of the basketball.
Boy, we have had a lot of action over at the scores table the second half, and that is never a good thing. And right now, a discussion going on. Maybe they were straightening out the foul. There you take a look at Wallace. Rob Chubb going to the bench. And Mardrakus Wade, the SEC's leading three-point percentage shooter, knocks down both free throws. Wade today, 3 of 6 from outside the three-point line. He has 18. Ricky Scott has 18 as Mitchell is called for the foul on the inbounds, but Scott has not scored here in the final 20 minutes. Attention golfers and club pros, online registration now open for the 2012 ESPN National Golf Challenge. Just log on to ESPNGolf.com to sign up and find a participating course near you. Mitchell whistled for the foul. It's his second. Now you've got Sanchez at 6'8", guarding the 5'10" Wallace. Forbes traveled before the contact.
Dave, check this out. If you're a big man, take your time. He has size at 6'8", but just trying to rush and get it too quickly. So many players, when they get a mismatch, they're so anxious. As soon as they get the basketball, they go right at the defender.
Gabriel with a steal, working against Scott. And that's the last thing that Auburn wanted to see was Kenny Gabriel hitting the floor again.
Ricky Scott, that's his second personal foul. Arkansas scored 15 foul.
And here's Kenny Gabriel earlier today, stretching out that back. Seems like it never hurts as much when you're making plays. You know what I'm saying, David?
As a player, right? Get that adrenaline going once you knock something down.
Here's that last play, just off balance and into the basket support. Here you see the line on Gabriel, and that's a pretty good one. Above his average, which is top 5 in the league in terms of blocked shots, but he misses both free throws. And all of a sudden, the uglier this game has got, the closer the Razorbacks have gotten. And finally, B.J. Young hits his first field goal of the day at the 13:30 mark of the second half. And Arkansas back within one possession for the first time in a long time.
And you wonder, at what point of this game do the legs for the guards of Auburn start to wear? Playing more minutes than they're accustomed to without Ward and Denson in this basketball game.
Haynes saved it. Haynes Nice move as he got the bucket over Sanchez. And Tony Barbee takes a quick timeout with 12:52 to play.
30-second timeout called by
B.J. Young, if at first you don't succeed, try again. You see the hands up. You see me? I'm open. Give it to me, Nobles. I know exactly what to do with it. And just when you forget about B.J. Young, he hits you right in the mouth. A very good job of staying persistent. Only 3 points today. 12.4 below his average. But it doesn't take him long to heat up.
Young, of course, one of the top freshmen in the SEC. And there are some outstanding ones this year, Damian.
Well, we talked about the future of this league. Young, Bradley Beal of Florida, Caldwell Pope, and everybody knows of Davis and Kid Gilchrist. You've got O'Brien III at LSU, Rodney Hood. I just think the future of this league will be outstanding. You mix the young talent along with the coaching in this league. The SEC has an incredible future in basketball.
Here's Young again. Let's see if that three-pointer got him going. It did not, but Ricky Scott, 18 in the first half, his first bucket of the final 20 minutes, and we're tied for the first time today. Arkansas has not led, and they only led once, 5-4, all the way back at the 18:34 mark of the first half.
You have to remember, Josh Wallace has been going against this press all day. Starting to get a little tired, Dave.
And here in the second half, he's been going exclusively against Sanchez. I thought for a second that Sanchez got caught on a switch. But I think that Mike Anderson has made the decision, hey, let the big guy, blur his range of vision. Wallace way short. And Auburn has now missed 3 straight free throws. The Tigers 11th in the league in free throw shooting. Arkansas is 10th in the league at the line.
Well, part of the Arkansas system is wearing you down for 40 minutes. Those free throws start to come up short. Those legs get a little heavy on the jump shot. Your mind starts to weaken a little bit. You have mental lapses. Start to turn over the basketball a little bit more. That's what Auburn's fighting through right now here at home.
Wallace and Sanchez each get a little bit of a break just ahead of the under 12-minute media timeout, which comes your way at the next dead ball.
Chest move by Coach Tony Barbee going to a 2-3 zone. Have to watch Young out of this zone. Very dangerous.
Nobles has been awfully quiet today. Off the ball fake. That's a pretty shot. Ulysses Nobles with his first field goal on his first shot attempt. And I think that's a good call, Damian. You can see this Auburn team. You can see it in their faces. You can see it in their body tilt. They're a tired basketball team.
Well, right now, you look for your leadership.
But a foul is called. Mickelson with the bump on Chubb. When we come back, could there be a big upset in the making in the SEC? The scores and more.
Jurisic, 10 points. Georgia leads Florida by 14. They lost to Florida by 22 earlier this season.
Thanks, guys. Dave Baker, Damian Fishback, our entire SEC Network crew back at Auburn. And you know, Damian, that may be what you get if you're Florida when you have no Will you get, who's out with that broken foot. And you talked about the great young players in this league. I mean, Georgia's got them, too. I mean, everybody's developing, and this is the time of the year when the unexpected sometimes happens, and we'll keep you updated on that one.
Ever since Coach Mike Anderson has went to this 2-3 zone, seemed to stifle the offense of Auburn. not having the ability to get inside, kind of living from the perimeter.
Frankie Sullivan couldn't get it to go. And you saw Chubb fly in for the rebound. And you saw his lower body fly before his arms, and that's because Mitchell got him with the body. Genghis Grill on the bowl is brought to you by Genghis Grill. Seize control. Build your own bowl. David, you said today that Auburn had to own that bowl. The one that hangs from the glass.
Owning it for you, Dave?
I think that's going for a second helping. Fill up that bowl once again. Nice defense by Sullivan to keep Scott from raising up off the screen. Here's Mickelson. Up and over Chubb. And they say that Chubb committed the foul on the floor.
Well, free throws are the worst place to allow an offensive rebound, and that's where Mickelson's got to get better. Just didn't get a body on Alan Payne for Auburn. And Payne is one of the guys who Coach Tony Barbie really likes. Struggled at the beginning of the season, but he likes the way that Payne competes. He's a fighter.
What about Mickelson? Going right at Chubb.
Love it. I think he is another one of those kind of lost freshmen under the radar in this conference. Mickelson has an incredible touch from the perimeter. You see it inside as well. Good length. Runs like a deer. Just has to play more consistent.
6'10", 236 out of Westside High in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Chubb tries to answer. And here come the Hogs. Young sees an outlet. And they say it's an offensive foul. Oh, my goodness.
And Coach Mike Anderson was pointing that he felt like he was in the circle. Let's take a look.
Let's take a look. I thought he was too. Boy, he's got a heel right on it. Back
of the right heel. Of course, official James Walker didn't have our view.
That secondary defender comes over and is inside that arc. It's supposed to be a block. As Payne is fouled.
Number 25, London Mitchell. That's his fourth foul. Arkansas's 19th foul. Alan Payne at the line for Auburn shooting two.
So Payne will go to the line to shoot two. Payne gets it to go.
Let's take a look at this again, Dave. Just on the line, that right heel. Could you have called that live? Did your eyesight that good, Dave?
Well, I mean it's a question. I mean, are you inside the arc? Or are you on the arc?
And Coach Mike Anderson still complaining about that particular call.
And Wallace draws the contact.
Number 11, Josh Wallace. That's his second foul.
Wallace guilty of committing the bump. And Nobles will inbound. Another whistle.
Dave, you notice these fouls coming all from the perimeter of Auburn. You look at Payne, Wallace, Sullivan, all playing quite a few minutes, extra minutes, with Vincent and Ward being out.
Foul is the third against Payne.
There it is again, another one on Sullivan. That's what happened when you start to wear out. Instead of moving your feet, you try to use your hands, your arms, anything. That is one beast that you will never beat. and that's fatigue, and that's affecting the perimeter for Auburn right now.
Affecting the play in this game as well. Sanchez with a catch inside. Mickelson can't get the stick back. And they say it's intentional. Adrian Forbes has been whistled for an intentional foul down on the baseline. They say Mike Thibodeau said he grabbed him around the waist. I'd be interested to take a look at this one.
Tough break.
All right, Mr. Can you call it live? Is that intentional? I mean, he's obviously trying to stop the shot.
Tough break for Auburn.
Mickelson gets it to go. Not a lot of protest from the Auburn bench. No question that was a hard foul.
Yeah, but he was going for the ball.
He absolutely was. So not only does Arkansas shoot, but they get the basketball, trailing by just a bucket. Nobles can't get it to go. And Mickelson fouled Shaw. Mickelson guilty of his second foul. Take a look at B.J. Young. When you've got Kenny Gabriel in your face, you're inclined to give it up.
Well, and you have to remember Sanchez still playing through the shoulder injury. Both he and Wade, Coach Mike Anderson talked about before the game, are playing hurt right now. So you talk about those 5 out of 6 losses for the Razorbacks. Not just those young guys running into a wall, but the veteran players in Waithe and Sanchez playing through injuries as well hurts them.
Auburn is almost shooting as well from the three-point line as they are the free throw line today. The Tigers 5 of 14 from outside the arc and only 7 of 13 from the line. Chubb gets the second. Young gave that one up, and a nice finish as Mitchell was hustling and trailing the play. Sullivan for 3. First tray in a while for the Tigers, and that's a big one. That's Auburn's first 3.5. Young gives it up again. Wade for the triple.
Arkansas now going back to their man-to-man.
The last 3 games between these two have been decided by a combined 14 points. So even when it was 17 in the first half, you knew it was going to time up. Every possession key. Frankie Sullivan with a tray. And Auburn leads by 4. Time now to take a look at our USAA game summary. You see the big numbers there for Ricky Scott and for Kenny Gabriel, but Damien, they've only got 2 points each here in the second half, and B.J. Young has got his only 3 here in the final 20 minutes.
Well, this is what happens during conference play. Coaches and teams make adjustments, and obviously both staffs making an adjustment at the half as we look at Kenny Gabriel and Coach Mike Anderson continuing to coach and mold this young team, anxious for their first road victory.
Right before we went to break, the initial call had been Arkansas basketball, but then the officials got together, as they've done a bunch today, and they reversed it. So Auburn with the basketball, and Gabriel misses the three.
Well, that's what you want if you're Arkansas. Again, throwing different looks at the Tigers.
More great SEC action coming up on this SEC Network station next week, the final Saturday of the regular season. Mitchell has had a big day for Arkansas. This time last year, he was getting ready for spring football. Here he is with a basketball. Wow. Boy, is this kid impressive, Damien.
Well, he's an athlete. And athletes can be thrown into any sport, on the football field, on the basketball court, and get it done.
Arkansas with the trap, and Auburn forced to take a timeout. It's the time of year when we start talking brackets and RPIs and all that sort of stuff, Damien. And what about quality wins for the SEC this time around?
Well, I think the SEC has been so underrated. You look at some of those wins: Alabama, Wichita State, Purdue, Arkansas towards the bottom of the league, knocking off Michigan, who's competing for the Big Ten against Michigan State and Ohio State. Florida State lost by nearly 20 at Florida. Georgia early in the season knocked off Notre Dame. Kentucky, everybody knows how well they're playing. Kansas, Louisville, North Carolina, and then LSU and Vanderbilt both knocked off Marquette. Vanderbilt actually on the road a convincing win. And so when you talk about 5 teams out of the SEC, I think that's a minimum. And when teams like Mississippi State lose at an Arkansas or an LSU, I don't see it as a bad loss. I see it as showing the depth of this conference and quality wins by those teams.
Speaking of that depth, an update now. We understand that Georgia's up on Florida by about 10 with 3 minutes to go. Here's Sullivan. And another offensive rebound by the Tigers. They can't convert it, though. Scott. And look at Mitchell. His offensive rebound leads to the triple by Ulysses Nobles. Tony Barbee is taking a timeout. Nobles got the bucket, but Mitchell made it happen. He's got a career-high 10 points today, does the Razorback quarterback. He's also got 6 rebounds and 3 assists.
Well, this shot was made because Chubb for Auburn and Gabriel didn't box out, allowed Mitchell to get in there and get the rebound. And you see that excitement by Mitchell? How anxious, how hungry do you think this Razorback team is for their first road victory? And, you know, you look at the rest of the schedule, they've got Auburn here today, and then they have Ole Miss at home, and then Mississippi State. First lead since 5-4 with 18:34 in the first half for the Razorbacks. Smelling victory here on the road.
The last game, 9 lead changes, 8 ties. And now a 1-possession game. Wallace in trouble. Here's Payne. Arkansas doesn't mind that because they've got Auburn going at the tempo they want them to play at. Third lead change of the day. Scott on Wallace. Look at the little guy with a defense. And it's a shot clock violation. Turnover forced by the Tigers.
Outstanding. You look at this young man here, walk on. And now starting at Auburn, just sensational defense on the part of Josh Wallace, realizing that Scott wanted to go to the paint, staying in front of him, not allowing him to get to where he wanted to go. You see that Arkansas road record, 0-8, 0-6 in the SEC. And they would love to steal one here on the road.
And Auburn 13-2 here at home. Their only losses in this building to Alabama and to #1 Kentucky. Sullivan was bumped. Wade whistled for the foul. It's his second. And from an Arkansas perspective, this isn't really a bad move here either. Auburn has not set the world on fire in terms of free throw shooting. Frankie Sullivan only 69%. Auburn on the day, 8 of 15 from the free throw line.
Well, when you struggle offensively, those are the type of baskets that you can ill afford. Frankie Sullivan, you see his season free throw shooting percentage. You think that fatigue setting in a little bit?
Maybe fatigue, maybe a little pressure. They haven't shot it well from there all year. But due to the suspensions of Ward and Denson, there have been fewer Tigers to play more minutes this afternoon. And Mitchell has just picked up his 5th foul.
Ooh.
Got to credit Payne for getting over there, but the question is, did he get all the way over there? Take one more look at it. If we get a chance, Damien, as Mitchell heads to the bench, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists.
Yeah, he moves and looks like Payne actually even jumps into it a little bit, but Coach Anderson not worried about it. The Razorbacks not worried about it, back into their defense.
So Scott goes out. And what a day that Mitchell had.
Well, he's been all over the floor. You're seeing the offense here, showing his ability to get to the rim. We talked about him using his mobility and his foot speed against larger defenders, guys like Rob Chubb and Kenny Gabriel.
Boy,
all career highs.
How about that? And I'm telling you, he's a guy, you know, I know he's a football, but this guy can play at this level. I mean, now, in certain situations, you know, he's not going to be the ideal size, but, I mean, you come in a game like this, late in the season on the road, I mean, that young fella's got a lot to hang his hat on.
Makes a difference. One year we had 6 scholarship players when we played, brought on guys like Kendall Mack and Quentin Robinson from the football team. Football players make a difference. They give you depth. They usually have a more physical and tougher mindset, and I guarantee you, Coach Anderson appreciates what Mitchell does for the Razorbacks.
The Auburn lead that was once 17 is now 3. Scott looks like he's hunting a 3 ball. Wade won't hesitate. Scott for the 2. It pulls the Hogs within a point.
And B.J. Young demanded that basketball from Scott on that play. He wanted it. Good penetration, drawing defenders, and found the open man.
See the timeouts underneath the 2 teams on your screen. Auburn with just 1 left. And Tony Barbee has got some tired players who laid it on the line today as Wallace draws the foul. He'll go to the free throw line with his Tigers holding on to a 1-point lead. 2012 ESPN National Golf Challenge. Go to ESPNGolf.com to sign up today. There you see historic Toomer's Corner here in Auburn. The Tigers leading Arkansas 66-65. Time now for the Direct Auto Insurance Drive of the Game. Direct Auto, helping drivers get affordable car insurance. Visit your local store or directgeneral.com and start saving today. How about that? That's a direct drive that leads to a very direct putback by Kenny Gabriel, who has made a living on that from start to finish this afternoon. And that would be a reason to exhale if you're Tony Barbie, actually seeing somebody step to the free throw line and make one. Wallace, a 53% free throw shooter, you saw, makes them both in a one-point game. Young. And he's bumped out front by Gabriel.
When you look around the country and you say that player has it, you talk about Kid Gilchrist at Kentucky and Anthony Davis, who I think will be the first-round draft pick, Player of the Year, and National Defensive Player of the Year. B.J. Young has it. He's been struggling all day, but no matter how much he struggles, it's the end of the game. He wants the basketball in his hand, and he feels like he's going to help his team win, and something positive is going to happen.
Nice thing about all those guys that you mentioned, Damian, it's a confidence, not a cockiness. They like being on the big stage. And that's the reason they come to play in a conference like the SEC. Under 3 minutes now to play. There you see that number. And there you see the steal by Arkansas. Here's Young. And the Razorbacks go back on top in search of their first road win in the SEC.
Arkansas back to that 2-3 zone.
And the Tigers going back to Rob Chubb. Tony Barbie called that from the bench, and he got exactly the look he was on it. Young again. Did we just say confidence?
The same thing happens if you were to take all the fans, coaches, officials off the floor in a pickup game. Your big-time players, when the game is on the line, they want the basketball in their hand.
6. Lead changes in this one. Auburn, as you saw, up by 17 in the first half, as Wallace can't get it to go over Nobles. Remember, Auburn playing without Barres Ward and Chris Denson, sophomore and freshman, sat down for this game by Tony Barbie. They're not on the bench. We don't know why. The Auburn coach will address it after the game. Nobles with it in his hand. Shot clock at 5. And Sanchez was fouled before he committed the charge.
Warrior, fighter, competitor. Those are words that come to your mind when you talk about Sanchez. Sure, the shoulder's not 100% right now, but instead he goes right at the rim, takes the contact, and has an opportunity to put his team up through.
53% free throw shooter, was not close on the first. Auburn with the only one timeout remaining, so they can't afford to take one to freezing. He gets 1 of 2. And some shoving away from the basketball. Ricky Scott and Sullivan got into it. Mike Anderson, though, was calling a timeout. All the officials were looking at that timeout and didn't see that extracurricular as you take a look at our game reset. A A 2-point Arkansas lead. Their biggest was 5-2 early in this game. And how about Ricky Scott and the game that he has had? 22 points, 9 of 13 from the field, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. He is our auto insurance player of the game. That is a big-time stat line right there, Damian.
Out of MacArthur High School. He is representing his school today extremely well. And one thing you like about Scott, you talked about the shoving, but you have to have a sense of toughness, both mental and physical, to get a road victory. You have to make some shots. You have to take care of the basketball. You have to defend, but there is a sense of toughness on the road that your players have to have.
So if you're Auburn, do you go back inside to Rob Chubb?
Well, you definitely go to the paint, and Chubb has been successful. I would go to him in the post until they stop him.
Sanchez fronting him down low. Now Chubb with a screen. Boy, Wallace had him on the roll and missed him. Just waited too late. Threw it at his feet because Chubb was there off the pick and roll.
Well, and that's tough. And if you're Coach Tony Barbie, maybe you rethink and say, maybe I should have went to Sullivan or Kenny Gabriel. But like you said, you just went to play before, and Chubb scored with a nice jump hook inside. Last road win, February 26, 2011 at Auburn, 57-55.
Gabriel immediately fouls Rashad Madden, who Mike Anderson just brought into the game, I believe, because he's such a good free throw shooter. He's at 73.9. I know he hadn't played a lot. You got to know the scouting report. I know you got to foul quickly.
Well, the key is if he makes 1 or 2. I think either way, if you're Auburn, you go to the rim.
Comes in and just knocks it down.
Dave, 35 seconds in eternity in the game of basketball, especially being in the double bonus if you're both teams. If you're Auburn, you go to the rim, try to score, get fouled.
And 4 points is Arkansas's biggest lead of the day. Sanchez comes back into the Arkansas lineup. He replaces Madden. And let's see what Auburn can work up offensively. They got to do something quickly. And they are. Sullivan didn't get a good look. And a foul underneath.
The Noble's called coming over the back, and the last thing that you want, his 5th foul and a bad foul. And Noble's frustrated, doesn't feel like he got the foul, but you have to realize that if you secure that rebound, you have a very good opportunity of getting this roll win. And this is obviously a set play by Coach Tony Barbie to try to set Frankie Sullivan up. Wide open, just missed everything.
And a nice box out there by Alan Payne. No question that Nobles came over his back. Nobles fouls out with 5 points and 2 rebounds. So Alan Payne, 70% from the line for the year. Now Adrian Forbes, number 45, checks back into the lineup. Checks back in for Gabriel, who's got the 4 fouls. Tony Barbie doesn't want him to pick up his 5th. Forbes had the rebound, and they say he was fouled. Payne missed them both. Auburn, 12 of 21 from the free throw line in this basketball game that they trail by 4.
Instead of closing the door, Arkansas inviting Auburn to come on in.
Oh, my goodness.
And Auburn saying, no, we'll just stay outside.
12 of 23 from the free throw line now. Chubb set to come back in.
Look at what they call the jungle. Look at the expressions of the fans here at Auburn Arena. Just don't understand how they were up 17 at one point. And
Forbes gets 1 of 2, though, to make it a one-possession game.
this is where if you're Auburn, you're hoping freshmen will be freshmen.
Auburn needs to foul quickly. Wade behind the defense. And boy, what a smart play to pull it back out. Boy, I'm telling you, Mardrakus Wade had a path to the basket. And you want to talk about a heads-up play. You want to talk about a young guy playing like a senior? The sophomore Wade pulled it back out, ran more time off the clock, and put B.J. Young at the free throw line, where he's shooting 74%. This reminds me of, it's like watching one of those golf playoffs and all you need is a par to win. Everybody just kind of sputtered and they just can't get there. You know what I mean? Young gets the free throw and Mike Anderson takes a timeout. You see now each team with 1 remaining. As we take a look at our game reset, both teams in a double bonus. The arrow points to Auburn. So, Coach Fishback, if you're Auburn, do you go for a quick 2, try to get a steal or a foul, or do you try to get the triple?
I think you have to go for the quickest available shot, whether it's a 2 or a 3. Realizing you're in the double bonus, you want to attack the rim, which is exactly why Coach Mike Anderson called that timeout. 2 reasons. It allows Arkansas to set up in some type of pressure, and also it lets them know that they're going to get fouled and tries to realize that after they get a stop, or even if Auburn makes it, to get the ball in the right hands.
Talked about that February there. Just in, Georgia has beaten Florida 76-62, the Gators' 3rd loss in their last 6 games. Wallace backs it back out. Wow.
Too much time by Wallace. You have got to go all the way to the rim and try to create for yourself.
Boy, and a rough day for Tony Barbie. His guys played awfully hard as you look at what we have coming up next Saturday. And remember, he may have lost this game today as Madden hits again. But he sits down Varez Ward and Chris Denson, not even on the bench, not dressed. We'll know why after the game. But that's the kind of thing you got to do for the long-term viability of a program.
The first job is making sure you raise young men